my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
BYWG Tribe, this is Dr. Noah. We wanted to make you aware of our carefully selected book, product, and supplement of the month for August 2019. Keep in mind, all the links, discount codes, and special offers for the product, book, and supplement will be listed in the show notes in iTunes, posted on social media, in our weekly newsletter, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestjeans.com at the Listen Now tab. The product of the month is Dry Farm Wines. Natural wines are all the rage, and this, in our estimation, and many others, is the best of the best in the natural wine movement. The team at Dry Farm Wines curates the finest natural wines that are lab-tested and delivered directly to your door. No hangover, no headaches, no uninterrupted sleep, low alcohol, sugar and carb-free, low sulfates, and mycotoxin-free. For our loyal listeners, we have a very special offer for you, a penny bottle of wine. Using the link www.dryfarmwines.com/BYWG. Remember, the link will be in the show notes. I've been enjoying Dry Farm Wines for years. In fact, 2.5 years ago, I met the creator of Dry Farm Wines, Todd White, at the New York City Christmas Functional Forum meeting. You can listen to me interview Todd White from Dry Farm Wines in the podcast archives at www.beyondyourwildestjeans.com at the Listen Now tab under Biohacking Healthy Wines and Microdosing Alcohol with Todd White. Our August supplement of the month is BYWG's magnesium glycinate. Magnesium is one of the most common deficiencies in our current research and is a critical part in over 200 processes in the human body. Magnesium supplementation is suggested for many people and can be especially helpful for improved sleep, improved mood, muscle cramping, bone density, and much more. This form of magnesium glycinate, is well absorbed and less irritating to the digestive system, so it's preferable to other forms of magnesium. For the month of August, using this code, and it's case sensitive, I want MAG, that's all lowercase, IWANTMAG, you will receive 10% off your magnesium. The direct link will be in the show notes, or you can go directly to our website and find it there as well, along with a complete spec sheet at www.beyondyourwildestjeans.com. Lastly, our book of the month is Beating Endo, How to Reclaim Your Life from Endometriosis. June 8th and June 15th, I had the opportunity to interview the co-authors, Dr. Iris Orba and Dr. Amy Stein. Millions of women suffer from this condition, and this book is a must-read, and the podcast interviews are fantastic. You can check the direct link to the book in the show notes. Be awesome and never unawesome, and enjoy the upcoming podcast. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Noah and Dr. Mike, 2/3 of your BYWG team. In this podcast release, we will take an in-depth look at one of our premium supplements, magnesium glycinate. We went deep, very deep, looking at all the different types of magnesium to provide you with what we consider the best, most absorbable, easy on the stomach form of magnesium available. Just so you have it handy, while we go through all the specs, the 10% discount code for the month of August is I want MAG. It's all lowercase. It is case sensitive. It's IWANTMAG. You can purchase it online or on our website at www.beyondyourwildestjeans.com, or if you're local, you could pick it up at the office as well.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Beyond Your Wildest Jeans podcast. I'm your co-host today, Dr. Mike Akinfora, and I'm thrilled to have back with us our own Alec Baldwin of Beyond Your Wildest Jeans, Julie Ann Cairns. Julie Ann, how are you?
I'm good. I think you better explain the Alec Baldwin reference so that, people don't think I'm a middle-aged man, who impersonates Trump a lot.
That's right. For those of you who don't know, Alec Baldwin has hosted Saturday Night Live the most times, and Julianne is our guest who has been on the show the most times. So she's our own Alec Baldwin. So we're thrilled to have you back on the show, and your blog posts and our previous podcasts really resonate with our audience. So you wrote a great blog post, and I wanted to share it with our folks, let me just read, I'm getting carried away here. Let me just read a quick short bio, and then we'll get right into the blog post.
Great.
Julie Ann Cairns' life mission is to empower people to live in an abundant life free from false beliefs. In this spirit, she wrote The Abundance Code, How to Bust the 7 Money Myths for a Rich Life Now. That's from Hay House, September 2015, and has spearheaded the Abundance Code documentary, which was released worldwide in 2016, to help people everywhere make a shift to the abundance mindset and seek joint solutions to the most pressing challenges facing our planet. I'm going to read a little more, folks. Trained as an economist and statistician, Julie Ann has over 25 years of experience in the fields of wealth creation, financial market education, and financial advice. It was through her long years of working in this space of educating people on the steps they could take to create financial abundance that Julie Ann realized some of the biggest blocks people face. People often fail to grow their wealth and abundance even when they have a strong desire to do so, even when they have all the knowledge that they should need, and even when they make consistent efforts. Why? Julie Ann discovered that this happens when they have not addressed their limiting subconscious code. This is the shift that needs to happen before any desire, knowledge, or effort can bear fruit. It has been this realization that motivated Julie Ann to write her book, The Abundance Code, and to direct a 90-minute documentary interviewing over 15 thought leaders about abundant thinking, also called The Abundance Code. Julie Ann chooses to spend most of her time in one of the most beautiful places on earth, Queenstown, New Zealand. Julie Ann, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I was reading. I'm on your email list, and I get your newsletter, and I really almost every single time that you write it, it really strikes me. You wrote the latest blog post that I read was, "Do you think you suck at the game of life?" So
Yeah.
before we get into that, just for the 3 or 4 people that haven't heard your story, could you just give people a little bit of a deeper look into who you are and how you got here?
Sure. Okay. So the turbo version of my backstory is I'm kind of a citizen of the Commonwealth. I was born in the UK. I was raised in Canada. I went to high school and university in Australia. Spent a lot of my career time as an economist working in Australia. I worked at the Reserve Bank of Australia. I worked at Macquarie Bank, which was one of Australia's biggest merchant bank. And now I live in New Zealand, so I'm kind of doing a little tour of the Commonwealth. When I grew up in Canada, my dad was studying there. He and my mom are both Australian, but they moved to Canada so my dad could train. He had a double specialty in oral surgery and anesthesiology. And he did very, very well for himself. He actually progressed his field quite a lot, and he was a very sought after, highly trained surgeon. And so my childhood experience was one of being the child of a very well-to-do surgeon. And we ended up moving to a town which was in a 5,000 people. It was called Omimi in Ontario. And the people who lived in that area, it was a very rural area, weren't particularly wealthy. And then, my parents ended up building this big mansion there. And so I had an experience when I was going to school in that area of being much more wealthy than the people I was associating with at school. And I experienced, a little bit of jealousy from people and some interesting things going on. So it caused me at a very young age to think about the effect that money has on people psychologically. And then, when I was about 11 years old, my parents broke up, and within a couple of years, they had lost all the money. And I was living with my mother, who went bankrupt. And so I experienced the shoe on the other foot financially of what it was like to not have any money and want things that you couldn't have, and all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of experienced a wide range of financial realities, let's put it that way. And that further intensified my interest in, wow, money is a hot button for people, right? And I get why, because I've had this broad range of experience. And then I decided about age 15, well, I have experienced wealth and I've experienced being poor, and I certainly like wealth better. So at that point, I decided I'd become very driven and I would be successful. So I became a very studious person at that point, and I studied very hard. I went to university. I studied finance, economics, statistics, mathematics, the stock market, and ended up doing 9 years of study at university, with my specialty being the stock market. And so eventually I ended up, after a career in banking, teaching people how to trade the stock market. And what I noticed, and I did that with my business partner, so we had an education business teaching people how to trade financial markets. And what I noticed with our clients was that, you know, a good proportion of them, a decent proportion, were successful. There was always this group who couldn't make it work, right? And initially my job in the company was to support those people and figure out what was going on. Why couldn't they make it work? Because they had the exact same knowledge that we had taught everyone else. They were trading the exact same markets that everyone else was trading. So they had the exact same opportunity set. And they were putting in effort, right? They were really trying to work the system, but it was just not working for them. And I had to figure out why. And when I started interviewing these people and digging into what was going on, what I discovered was that the differentiating factor was not knowledge. It was not desire for wealth. They all wanted to be wealthy. And it was not effort. They were all putting in the effort. It was belief, their belief system. So when I say belief, I'm talking about that complex set of inner, I call them codes, subconscious codes. That's why I called my book The Abundance Code, because I'm talking about, if you think of your mind kind of like a computer, you have your conscious mind, which, you know, we often think our conscious mind is running the show, and that's where the knowledge sits, for example. But the subconscious mind is hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than the conscious mind in terms of processing power. And really, most of our decisions are actually driven by our subconscious mind and our subconscious programs. So that's the layer at which the beliefs are sitting. They're subconscious subroutines that are in fact driving most of our behavior. And although we'd like sometimes to use the conscious mind to make a different choice, if we haven't changed the code on the subconscious level, our conscious mind just can't win that battle, because the conscious mind is like a 50-bit processor compared to the 500 megabit processor of our subconscious mind. So we just don't ever really win that fight. Yeah. So that's when I discovered, what are these subroutines? What are the 7 most common limiting, unhelpful subroutines that many people have? Most people, I would say, in the Western world have these 7. And I call them the 7 money myths. Mm-hmm. How do you address them? How do you change them? What is the process by which you rewrite your code so that it supports you, not thwarts you in your conscious desires? And that was the topic of my book, The Abundance Code.
Yeah, and it always amazes me, because of your background in finance and the stock market, which are super analytical, and then looking at where you've made this discovery and breakthrough, and for me, looking at it, it's completely antithetical to what you have done for a living. But And that's because it's the subconscious part. You can't have you can't have that success that you're looking for without addressing the subconscious. But on the surface, it looks like, how did you, I guess that's what the question is. There's a question here, believe it or not. How did you make that leap from where you were to this?
Yes, it's a great question. And, often these breakthroughs come in a moment of crisis. And it was no exception for me. I certainly had this very strong desire for wealth. And I certainly had all the knowledge you should need. I studied for 9 years at university all of this stuff about how to make money in the stock market. And that still was not enough. And I was putting in consistent effort. In fact, I was a bit of a machine in terms of trying to push forward and create wealth in my life. But, I had a couple of ups and downs because for me, I had some very sabotaging, miscoded beliefs hiding in my subroutine system of my subconscious mind. And for me, the biggest ones that tripped me up all the time was the belief that money was easy come, easy go. Mm-hmm. So I found that I could actually make wealth easily. That's not something that everybody has the experience of, but perhaps with my childhood, having been wealthy, I knew it was possible, right? So I could make it, I just couldn't hang on to it. And so I had a couple of instances where I made a lot of money and then I lost a lot of money. I made a lot of money and then I lost a lot of money. And about the third time that this happened in my life was around the time of the 2008 financial crisis. And I was, at this time, this was probably the worst instance of it for me, and I was facing potential bankruptcy. I was very close to going bankrupt. And at that moment, there was also a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, so I was basically kind of brought to my knees at that moment. And I was really asking myself some deep questions like, wow, I've had this gain and loss cycle a few times. What is going on? And I remember I had this feeling in my body. And body feelings are very educational. We just often don't want to go and dig into them and find out what they are. But I had this terrible feeling of being terrified that was residing in my gut. And when I tapped into that feeling, I realized it was familiar. And it was the feeling I'd had when I was 11 years old, and my parents had broken up and I'd lost my family life. My sister and my dad had moved to Australia. So I lost my sister and my dad. My mom lost all her money and declared bankruptcy. So everything fell apart in my life at that time. And I was terrified back then. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I realized in 2008 that I had that same feeling in my gut. And I went, whoa, wait a minute. Is this happening because that is my childhood pattern that I came to view as normal? Did I code that this win-loss thing is the way that life goes? And I believe that that's the way it always has to go? And that question really triggered a deep exploration into subconscious beliefs and sparked a whole new branch of study for me, which I went way down the rabbit hole on that and realized, wow, yes, I did have that subconscious belief wired in. It was not helping me. And so long as it was in there, I was probably going to stay on this win-loss roller coaster for the rest of my life. And if I did not want that, I needed to learn how to reprogram that code.
That's fascinating to me. And for folks who haven't done that work, I want to say it's simple, but it's not easy.
Exactly.
It really is. It's simple, but it's truly not easy. And the fact that you were able to identify it and it felt familiar to you is huge. And that's the thing. That's what we need to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. That's cool. I love that. All right. So that's a really good background to your work and what you do. Were there any? I just want to dive in just a little deeper. Were there any resources that you can remember in diving into subconscious or limiting beliefs that our audience can look up, or was there a specific person?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what was that?
Absolutely. I started with a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great resource. I inhaled all the stuff like Think and Grow Rich, The Game of Life and How to Win It, Stephen Covey, anyone who talked about that, internal mindset, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Abraham Hicks. I just inhaled as much as I could of all that stuff. And then I also went on a journey regarding, okay, so that stuff really taught me, all right, what are limiting beliefs and what are some beliefs that might be more supportive and more positive.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also learned in my studies that just trying to whack a new belief on top of the old belief often does not work. And I identified through my going down the rabbit hole, studying NLP, studying tapping, studying theta healing, studying dynamic spin release. I studied so many things in order to clear my own belief system and install better code. And after studying all these things, I realized that the ones that work have three things. There's always three steps.
Okay.
The first step is to identify the belief so you know what you're dealing with, right?
Right.
And that, in fact, is the hardest step because the beliefs are subconscious. They lie below our conscious awareness. So they don't actually make themselves easy to grab onto. The subconscious code of our minds does have a few, what would you call it, firewalls.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of not a system that's inherently designed for us to be able to super easily hack in there and make a lot of changes, right? So in identifying the beliefs, that was one of the contributions I wanted to make with my Abundance Code book because I felt there was a lot of people who had talked about beliefs, talked about, affirmations and a few different processes, but I wanted to identify what are the top 7 limiting beliefs about money that most people have. And I ended up coming up with the 7 money myths and realized that they were, in fact, a series of gates. You start at the beginning, and then as you clear the beliefs, it's kind of like people say, new level, new devil, right? As you clear the beliefs from the bottom, then if you haven't already encountered the next level, you will as you clear the lower level beliefs. So if you clear all of these 7 beliefs, I believe that's about 80% of the battle. Everyone will have their some of their own specific individual beliefs that accounts for kind of the other 20%. But if you do these 7 beliefs, you'll get 80% of the problems out of the way. So the first step is identify the belief. So that's what I've helped people do in my book. The second step, which I also do in my book for each of those 7 beliefs, is to weaken the belief. And this is where the conscious mind can actually come in handy. So you can use the conscious mind to argue against the belief. So use logic and knowledge to show to yourself and to show to your own subconscious mind examples where that belief is not true. So, for example, let's take the very first base level belief, which is like the root of the entire limiting belief system around money, which is the belief in scarcity. The belief that there is not enough to go around. And when we believe that there is not enough to go around, it kicks up all kinds of things like we have to compete, because if there's not enough for everybody, then if I'm going to get enough for me, then you have to lose some of your share, right? So it kicks up all kinds of things like competition, envy, jealousy, all kinds of negativities just spring out of that belief that there is not enough. So when we go to weaken that belief, we can put forward arguments like, for example, just looking at the sun and the amount of energy that the sun is beating down on our earth every day, the unbelievable abundance of plant life and things that are being powered on this planet by our sun. It's virtually unlimited, right? I mean, I know it's limited in the mathematical sense, but in terms of if we can tap into the power of the sun, which we're now learning to do through solar cell technology, the amount of energy available to us will be virtually unlimited. So we can look at that and go, well, are we really living in a system based on scarcity? When we look at nature, you know, if we stop, you know, clearing the plants away, and keeping our roads clean and all that sort of stuff, and buildings, plant life will overtake everything that we've built in a matter of decades, right? So if we don't hold back the growth of nature, it will overgrow everything that we have built so far, right? So that says to me that actually we are living in an abundant system. We just don't think we are. So that's an example of using the conscious mind and facts that we can readily access to convince the subconscious mind that actually that belief may not always be true.
Right.
And the effect that that has is that it kind of breaks the back of the belief. It doesn't replace it, but it weakens it enough so that when we do go to put a new belief on top, which we can do in a number of ways. So that's step number 3 would be, step number 1 is identify, step number 2 is weaken, step number 3 is replace. When we go to replace the old belief with a new belief, that's when we can use affirmations, we can use vision boards, which is basically visual affirmations. We can use just repetitive stimulation, new habits, in order to wire in the new belief. And that will tend to work once we've done the first 2 steps, which is identify and weaken. If we don't do the first 2 steps, it tends not to work. It's like putting wallpaper on a moldy wall. Eventually the mold grows through, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. That segues perfectly into what you wrote. And I just want to read for folks the beginning of what you wrote. It makes me sad when I see people who think they suck at the game of life, people who think that they're broken or unworthy somehow, and that's the reason that they're not successful. So talk to us about why does that make you sad?
It makes me sad because, I mean, as human beings, we so often blame ourselves, right? So, you know, here's the cycle that people get into, right? When you have this code that is not supporting you, and I'll just give you some examples of beliefs that may not support you in your success. Like, I have to work hard for my money. I have to do something in order to deserve success, although it's not always clear exactly what I have to do. But I have to do something. I have to validate my existence somehow. Money, as I believed, this is one I had, money is easy come, easy go. Another one a lot of people have is, if I have more money, I'll have more problems. or money won't make me happy. In fact, money will make me unhappy. You know, if I get money, I'm going to lose all my friends. If I have more than I need, then I'm greedy or I'm selfish. Or if I have too much money, it's going to corrupt me and I'm going to turn into a bad person. These are very common beliefs that people have.
Yes.
And when you're playing the game of life with this set of rules, which is what they are, they're subroutines, they're rules that your subconscious mind is implementing, you can't win. You just simply cannot win that game. And what happens is it's very hard. You know, you have to work very hard. It's very frustrating. It's very tiring. And because it's almost impossible to win, and if you do win, it's like you do this deal with the devil, right? Like you're like, you know, I'm going to trade my success for, you know, not being a good person, because that was one of the beliefs I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be that way, but, you know, I certainly see people who have achieved financial success who are completely miserable still, right? Because they have that belief that money is not going to make them happy and that it might corrupt them, and they're playing that out. So we tend to look at, all right, we're having a hard time, it's frustrating, it's tiring, I feel like a loser, and I'll look at other people who are successful, and like they're making it work. So what people tend to do is go, well, it's just me. Mm-hmm. I'm a loser. There's something wrong with me. And two responses from that people will have. One is, they'll get depressed, right?
Yep.
One response is like, well, they'll just lose confidence and get depressed and kind of resign themselves to this shitty lot in life.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast.
It's fine.
Sorry if I'm not. Or they'll try even harder and they'll exhaust themselves even more. And both of those things make me sad because I see the loss of potential in that. And I know that it's not true that they're not good enough. They're judging themselves against other people and going, I'm not good enough. And the critical thing that they're not understanding is that it's not them that's not good enough. It's this set of rules that's playing in their subconscious mind that's not good enough. You know? Oh, yeah. I believe every person has an incredible gift to give to the world. And it's a gift that the world needs and that the world is waiting for. And this belief that you are fundamentally flawed yourself is so destructive and so, in my mind, untrue. What's flawed is the set of rules and subroutines you have going on in your subconscious mind. And if you can change that, then you unlock your potential in life, and you can do and have and be literally anything you want to do, have, and be. I truly believe that. It's only a matter of changing the subroutines.
I agree with you 100% on that. And when we start traveling down that comparison road, it is truly a no-win game.
Right.
Because there's always going to be, you can't go down that road, folks. It's just.
Well, the only way to productively go down that road is to depersonalize it, right? Okay. And go, okay, it's not me as a person that's flawed here, but look at the rules that the successful, so-called successful person is playing by. What are they believing that's making all this success possible for them? And often it's beliefs like wealth and success come easily to me, and I deserve to have an amazing life, and my wealth grows and grows, and wealth makes my life easier, and it facilitates my happiness, and my money makes more money for me without me having to make more effort. And I have a great positive impact on the world because of my wealth. It doesn't make me a bad person. In fact, it allows me to have more positive impact. That's a completely different set of rules.
Complete.
And that game is not only easier to win, that game wins every time. If you really believe all those things, you win every time.
And it's not just you winning, it's all the
Everybody
ripples.
wins.
Yes, all the ripples of those around you winning as well.
Right. Because instead of being a win-lose game, which the scarcity-minded game is, the game that's rooted in there is not enough to go around, which is a win-lose game, there is more than enough for everyone is a win-win game.
Absolutely. Now, am I the only one that sees that what you've applied this to in this niche is our subconscious belief around money? But this really, I'm not the only one who sees this, obviously, but it applies to everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely everything.
Everything.
It applies to everything.
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's this, you ever see that picture of the iceberg and it's just the tip?
Yeah.
It's the tip. But money is that lightning rod for people. And I think that's where you're so brilliant.
It is a really great way to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, with money, the root belief, limiting belief,
mm-hmm.
is there is not enough. Right?
Yep.
But when you start to dig into there is not enough, you will get to what is sitting underneath that. And sitting underneath that is I am not enough.
Yes.
And when you rewrite I am not enough to be I am enough, it changes everything. It changes your relationships. It changes your health. It changes your ability to interact with people on a large scale. It affects your ability to be visible, to spread your message, to live your purpose. It affects absolutely everything.
And, it's amazing. I was just, before we called, I was looking through, we had last spoke in January. Did we do the beginning of the year ritual, I think it was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. And just to give folks, you really need to do the work, really look at what's going on. And one of the internal rules that you helped me with, and it was very simple. Again, it was simple and actually easy, but money is easy come, easy grow in my life. And I say that every single day. And and our company is our two companies, my personal company and my company Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. We've had our most successful years in practice and our most successful year in our 5 years of existence with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. And it's not a coincidence.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm so happy.
It's brilliant.
That's a huge change. And that's what I love about this stuff is in my business, my business partner often referred to me as the screw turner. And let me tell you why he referred to me that way. Okay, because there's a story. The story is about, someone who comes in, there's a big assembly line machine in a factory, right? And it's broken down. And so they get an assembly line machine expert to come in. And the assembly line machine expert sort of scans the machine, looks over it, inspects it, takes him about, 10, 15 minutes. And then he zeroes in on this one spot and he tightens one screw. And then they flip the switch and the machine works perfectly, right?
Yep.
So off he goes, and then they get the bill from the guy, and the bill is $10,000. And they're like, whoa, $10,000. He was only here for 20 minutes. Like, why is it $10,000? And so they call the guy up and they say, look, we need you to give us an itemized bill because that seems like a lot for how long you were here. He's like, sure, no problem. So he sends them a bill. And the bill says, 15 minutes looking at your machine, $50. Knowing which screw to turn and turning it, $9,950.
It's so true.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
but
so what I would say about belief change work is it is screw turning work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It doesn't take long if you know how to do it and you know how to do it properly so that it sticks. Like I said, you follow the steps in the correct order. And you do the work that is simple, not always easy, because sometimes it takes, the not easy part is just, are you willing to look at your money story? Are you willing to look at your family story? Are you willing to look at what code got put in there? If you're willing, and it's the not easy part is sometimes that can be a little bit emotional for people, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're just willing to look at it and follow the steps of identify, weaken, and replace, it is like turning that screw. The whole machine will suddenly work much better.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Talk to me about the, you touched on it before I interrupted and went off on a tangent, but what are some of the internal sets of rules that you would say successful people use? I think you hit on one, but what are some of the other ones?
Well, basically, successful people know that they can leverage their time, they can leverage their skills, they can leverage their knowledge. They don't have to put in long hours themselves, right? So I would say the key belief is obviously that belief that there is more than enough. Mm-hmm. I am enough. These are very fundamental beliefs. And then going through those cultural beliefs and rewriting them, like the belief that I have to work hard for my money. Mm-hmm. This is a very strong cultural belief. And realizing that actually, no, I don't. I can get my money working for me. I can have other people working for me. I can create products and services that scale and serve many people all at once and get paid over and over and over again for having created something once. An example of that is a book or a course or, a subscription program that money rolls in month after month after month, even though you created that thing once.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Knowing that you deserve wealth, success, even acknowledgement, prestige, you deserve to be visible. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen. Allows you to step out into the world with confidence. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't actually believe that they deserve success.
And that comes from feeling worthy. I am worthy.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
was a big one for me that I worked really hard on, and that worthiness led to me knowing that I was worthy, led to me believing that I deserved the abundance. I deserved success.
Absolutely. And that, this as I said, you can get some huge leaps forward very quickly with belief work. Massive leaps forward. And there's a sense in which belief work is never fully finished.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, even, I've been doing belief work for a long time. I've had some massive leaps forward, and I still keep coming across, more and more subtle layers. Like, for example, I've certainly made massive strides in terms of my wealth. And yet another layer for me that I came across not that long ago was around fun and feeling deserving to have a fun life, not just a wealthy life.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And part of that for me was, again, there is a bit of introspection involved in belief work. So, my childhood, particularly around the time that my parents broke up, was really not fun. So fun is something that I've had to kind of not just relearn, but reallow into my life and recondition my nervous system to go, hey, you're safe now, and it's safe for you to have fun.
Fascinating. I love it. It sounds to me like there's a course there waiting to unfold. I am really cognizant of your time. We've been on for quite a while. Where can people find you in the world? I'll leave it in the show notes. But where can people find you in the world?
Okay, well, the three biggest ways are check out my book, The Abundance Code, which is available on Amazon.
Sure.
Check out my site, theabundancecodebook.com.
Okay.
Where people can sign up for 5 free videos explaining the 7 money myths and what they're all about. So that's theabundancecodebook.com. And then you can also go to theabundancecode.com and check out my blog. And also, you can sign up to see the first 10 minutes of the Abundance Code movie, which then you can opt to purchase after that if you're interested.
Cool. I will have all that linked in the show notes. You have an end-of-year ritual that you do as well, so I'll be getting in touch with you.
Great.
In December, so that we can go through that for our audience. I read that and loved it, but it wasn't until January when I read it. So
right.
Hopefully you've returned from travel and we can have you back on the show, as your message is so well received by our audience, and I truly appreciate you coming back on the show, Julie Ann, so much.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to say before we leave?
Well, I do like to finish with this, a quote from Carl Jung, which is, and I'm repeating it from memory, so I might not get it exactly right. But basically he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, you will call it fate, and it will rule your life.
Love it. Brilliant. I think that's exactly what he said. Well, thanks again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and we will be in touch soon.
Great.
Folks, if you like what you heard, please go to iTunes, leave a review. It helps us to help others find the show and get this important stuff out to you all. And again, Julie Ann, thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Ciao, guys.